Our stories, our voice, our history hasn't always been welcomed. But we learned long ago that if America won't celebrate us, then we will celebrate our own, told our way, on our time. Today we have thousands of Black creators in film. Thousands of books are on the shelves of stores around the world. But it wasn't always as easy. For Lena, for Hattie, for James, for Zora, for Langston, we fought for a place in American history, and we've empowered our own voices, keeping our stories alive. Remember Philando, remember Mike, remember Trayvon, remember Sandra, remember Oscar, remember Brianna. No more will Black voices go unheard. No more will Black stories go unread. We will write our own history and create our own legacies. And each summer in Atlanta, we will gather. We will celebrate. We speak out. Black voices matter. Black stories matter. Black lives matter. Everybody has a story to tell. Make sure that you tell yours. Create your story. Dream out loud. Greetings, everybody. Hello, and welcome on to Election Day Chats. We are going to be speaking with Angela Stanton King about her quest for office, as well as the importance of voting and utilizing guys' voices today. I'm really anxious to talk with this lady because I've known about her history, her stories, her background for quite some time, and I thought that it was pretty heroic to step into this role, in particular, because you know how we can be. And right now, it's very important more than ever to be voting, to utilize your voice, and stay active in what's going on in your community, in your space. And so, Angela, she's running for office in a neighborhood where she's very familiar with, a space where she grew up. She's familiar with the community. She's familiar with the wants and the needs. And I'm kind of anxious to hear about her journey to take on, this feat here, and which was a seat which was previously, I think, occupied by John Lewis. Rest in power to John Lewis. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Miss Angela. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
All right, darling. I like the Friends shirts. I love that.
I'm at the house today. I'm in my home office. I got tons and tons of paperwork and stuff I need to take care of prior to the election. So excuse me for being dressed down today. But I always
Hey,
remember that I'm
you
just
you look casually chic. I love it. You're showing that not only are you smart and you're definitely fearless, but you're also around the way girl, so you can relate to all of the people on different levels. So I'm excited to jump into this conversation with you. When I first heard about you running for office, I was like, oh wow, okay, well that's bold. Because I don't know, and like I do a lot of community service work. A lot of my work is in the hands of gathering our communities and enriching our communities with literature and our stories and empowerment. So take us into this space. And when you decide to say, you know what, I think I want to go ahead and run for office. I think I can do the job.
you would think that I was absolutely crazy if I told you I just felt like it was a calling. I mean, it wasn't planned. If you followed me and you know my background, you know my story. I mean, even going all the way back to the fiasco with Housewives, and then the reality show on BET, and of course the book that I wrote. I mean, if you follow me from there, then I was just as shocked as everyone else on a ballot. I can tell you that, but I honestly began paying closer attention to politics through my relationship with my godmother Alvita. And as you know, you've read the story in my book. She's been a part of my life for quite some time. Actually, when I did serve time in prison for a nonviolent crime, while in prison, of course, I gave birth to my daughter chained to a bed. I lost my mother and my grandmother to death. Came home with a $25 check and a bus ticket, told to start my life over. Literally had no one. By the grace of God, ended up on Alvita King's doorstep. And she kind of took me and my children up under her wing. And I've been, working with this lady for the past 16 years in the area of public service in the nonprofit sector. And we've been all about, not only restoring our communities, but I've been focused on restoring my life as well. And
Right.
that came with learning how to adapt to a new life. Learning how to adapt to a life where nobody wanted to give me a job because I was a convicted felon and I couldn't get government
Right.
benefits because I was a convicted felon. So it was like, now it's swim or drown. What are you going to do? And I think having that safety net of government dependency snatched out from under me pushed me into my purpose. Like I would have never imagined I could be a successful business owner. I probably would have been somewhere content with, collecting Section 8 and being a single mom and meeting all of the statistics that are out there that we can
Right.
fall under. But for me, it pushed me in another direction. It made me go harder. And I kind of, realized that I had a God-given gift, which was writing. And so
Mhm.
journey, I went from publishing my first book to getting a publishing deal with my next book. When my first book was self-publishing through a self-publishing company. Then my next book, I actually got a deal. Then I got sued for $30 million for telling my own story. God knows when I didn't have 30 cents to my name. Got the deal snatched up under me. That too ended up being a blessing because it made me start my own publishing company and sell myself. So after that, I mean, just being successful in the lawsuit, understanding that I had the right to freedom of speech and I had the right to tell my own story as long as it was true, I kind of went on from there to the reality show. And then from there, my godmother was really close to President Trump and the administration. And I was kind of looking at how everybody was fighting about family separation at the border and how everybody was kind of blaming the president. And it just reminded me of my own situation. It reminded me of when I was in prison and was separated from my family and chained to a bed and had my daughter taken straight up out of my arms. But the only difference was that Trump wasn't the president at the time. And not only was he not the president, I was an American citizen. So that made me realize, wait a minute, we're being bamboozled, we're being misled by the media. There is no way that we could be fighting this hard for family separation at the border and not fighting that hard for our families in the border. So from there, I ended up getting connected with the president and having a chance to tell my own story to help pass the First Step Act. Not only were we successful in passing criminal justice reform, but because of my own personal story, the president, Donald Trump made it illegal for them to chain women to beds during childbirth. And I thought
Oh
that that was
wow.
something great, regardless of how anybody felt about him. I mean, I knew how it felt to be a woman chained to a bed giving birth. I mean, half of you,
Yeah.
one of you probably wouldn't even chain a dog while a dog was giving birth. So that was something historic for me. And not long after that, I ended up getting my own pardon. And then I'll tell you, it was the night before the cutoff for the race, and John Lewis was still with us. And somebody called my phone, very dear to me, and said, "Hey, Angela," and had one of the people from the GOP on the phone to say, "Would you think about running in this race? We believe that you would be the perfect candidate. Your messaging, you really can relate to the people in the fifth district. Would you consider it?" And I was like, wait a minute. Like, are you guys serious? Because at first I'm like, I'm not even worthy. Why would you guys think of me? Why would you pick me? But throughout my life, that's kind of like how God works. Um, I answered the calling, and here I am, and I'm just
Yeah.
running strictly on truth.
That has to be inspiring for people to hear about your beginning, because it's not pretty, and a lot of us does have trauma that we've experienced, and it definitely affects the people that we are today. Um, do people tell you that you inspire them, that you took this leap
Oh,
to run for public office? Because it really was, for me, I thought it was a very fearless move, because not
I,
only that, you
at the,
represent the you
you know,
represent a group of people where we can prejudge, or they won't technically give us the chance, or like our past is always just going to be who we are, or they lead with that, like the bad always spreads quicker than the good. um So I mean, take us into the space of just being fearless and
I
the
just,
inspiration you're giving.
well, I've always been fearless. I mean, ever since I was sexually violated as a child, it's just like for me, politics aren't political, it's personal. Like everything that
Mm,
us fighting for on the Congress floor, I've experienced in some type of way and been blessed enough to not only experience it, but to overcome it. And in some instances, not only overcome it, but to come back and fight against the system through my own experience, which is what we see with the First Step Act. And I just felt like there were things that I wanted to stand up for, and there were a certain, group of people that I needed to be a voice for. And I know, and you probably know because you followed my story, that I've always been fearless. I think that,
hmm
that I experienced prior to were just setting me up for where I am now. And I just think that it's important for us, for one, to understand that we can be Black and Republican. I think
Yeah.
that it's not fair to put us in a box because, again, we always talk about being oppressed, but white people can be Republican, Democrat, or independent and don't get blackballed from their community, don't get called a coon, don't get called a sellout. Like we should have that ability to be able to cross party lines, and we need to understand that everyone is not on the same page morally. So, there are some things that I just don't agree with. I don't, hate my brothers and sisters that are part of the Democrat Party, but I just can't support laws that have gotten too radical as far as, killing full-term babies up until the moment of birth. And I heard Joe Biden debate sexually transitioning 8-year-old children. Look,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot. The world definitely looks differently
and
these
somebody
days.
has to say something. Nobody is saying anything. And the thing is, when they pass these laws, and you've been following my story, I have a child. He's grown now. Who's a
Hmm
part of the LGBT community, and I love him to death. Right, but I'm gonna be real. I'm a mama. I know what's best for our community. I know that we need to protect our children, and we don't need to introduce them into sex too early. I mean, call it what you want. Not heterosexual sex, not homosexual sex, not bisexual sex, not transsexual sex, nothing.
Just sex. Yeah, yeah.
Should we, let the kids be kids. Let them. I like when I was 8 years old. I didn't, whether or not I was a boy or girl was the farthest thing from my mind. You understand where I'm coming from?
Mm,
I was just a kid, and I was just enjoying being a kid. I was learning how to write complete sentences. I was learning how to color inside of the line. I was learning how to
right.
fight without training wheels. Those are the things that 8-year-olds need to be doing, right? We got to be careful with that, and someone has to stand up and say, "Wait a minute, this isn't right." Because what happens is, once laws are passed and you have let's just say a 6 or 7 year old son that you're raising, and he says, "Mom, I want to be a girl." And you say, "Well, no, son, you can't be a girl." Well, the minute he goes to school and tells the teacher, "My mom won't let me be a girl," well, then you got defects at your door in your business because the teachers are mandated by law. Now all of a sudden you're an unfit parent. They're taking that child and your other children, and they're somewhere in a group home getting hormone injections. So as a parent, as a mother, as a real leader of a people, I'm gonna say leave the children alone, right? Grown folks do what I do, but we're gonna protect our children, and we're gonna give them a quality education. We're gonna make sure that all of our schools are funded. We're gonna make sure that our children have school choice. We're gonna make sure that we're protecting our religious freedom. Like, I'm from Atlanta. I saw everybody, at 21 Savage birthday party, turned up, no mask, no none of that. I'm not hating, right? Have a good time. But if y'all can go party, why can't the kids go to school? The kids, their party is at school. That's where all their friends at.
Hey, you making some points. You making some depth like it when you break down some of the logic that comes into that. We didn't grow up seeing a lot of things that are being allowed now. It's definitely a sensitive generation that's going on. And I definitely see, I guess what a difference is from where we grew up to what is being allowed now. And it's I feel like it's no different from when they allowed the age of marriage to be 16 or 17 or 18 or whatever the case may be, or you can't drink until you're 21. And or you can't even become a legal until you're about 18. We have these, I guess, these lines that we allow our children or for us to cross because we already know that we're not mentally, you know, capable of making sound decisions, and we're highly influenced when we're younger. So, there are laws in place that says, okay, as we mature, we're able to now make these sound decisions. Totally, totally, totally understand that. Is this a part of what is a big part of your stance when it comes to running for office? Take us into some more of your policies, and how are you shedding light on it?
Criminal justice my back. Am I back? Hold on one second. Let me.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay. Am I here? Where are we at?
It's we can't see your camera. We can hear you.
What's going on? Can I log out and log back in? Oh
Yeah,
no.
let's try it. Let's try
Okay.
that.
All right.
We're gonna actually run a commercial while we wait for Angela to come back, guys. Creating a space like this for creatives is important because a lot of us don't know how to engage with other writers. We're naturally introverted. Sometimes we get writer's block, and we need to connect with one another, feed off of each other's energy, and see what we can get from that. Because sometimes creating, you gotta reattach yourself to the world, attach yourself to other people like yourself, and see what you guys can come up with. So every week, we gather creatives. We get them to be vulnerable. We create these writing exercises, and we challenge them to tap into parts of them that they haven't before. Every week, we join together at HQ Arvin, which is at 228 Arvin Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. We start at 7 p.m., so make sure you're there every week. Bring your journals, bring your laptop, and be ready to create and gather with your other fellow creatives. Howdy, guys. We're still waiting for Angela to get back into the studio. And I want to come back and talk to you guys about voting, because I have been a huge advocate of making sure that we are utilizing our voices. We're also celebrating those that look like us, look like me, that looks like you, going to our communities. And doing our part to make sure that we are learning each other in our communities. We're protecting our communities. We're supporting our small businesses. We're gathering. I think that we build more of a community base in our cities from the ground up, little by little, then it can get a lot easier to live in America. It can be a lot more warming. It may feel a lot safer for us. And I think that it starts with using your voice and voting if you have the right. And I know that sometimes people may say, well, my one vote may not count. And that's not technically true because your one vote, imagine if a million people thought like you, that's a million votes now that's not going to be counted. Um, But just think about some of the people that look like me and that look like you that wanted to vote. They were either murdered or neglected, or um, they fought a lot of these voting rights and to have these human civil rights for us. So make sure that you utilize this time to use your voice and go and vote because you have the right. You can actually do it. So that should be enough for you to want to do it. I see we have Angela back, so let's go ahead and bring her back into the studio. Miss Angela, can you hear me?
I can hear you just
All
fine. I'm
right,
back.
cool, perfect. Okay,
A little
all right.
technical.
So, welcome back. So, I was just keeping people informed about our history, just the importance of voting. I mean, you may hear this, the stigma of this phrase, "Well, my vote don't matter." One vote won't even matter. But I like to think of the fact that it took a lot for people that look like me and you and our fathers and our brothers to be able to just cast a vote for it to say that it matters. And I don't think that people understand that voting, especially when it comes locally, your judges, the fire chief, people that may be sitting on the superintendent board, all these people affect your day to day. Not technically the presidential race, but
Right.
definitely, in your locals and your primary elections. And I wanted people to kind of understand and gain that knowledge of just taking control of our communities. I also feel that if, say, for instance, law enforcement, if they were a little bit more familiar with the communities that they govern or they were policing, there will be less fear
Yep.
and there will be less friction between the community and police officers.
That's actually one of my
Um,
initiatives.
yeah. So, can you tap in on that? Can you give us
Yes,
your input on that?
that's one of my initiatives. I was actually on the ground, in Minneapolis protesting as well when the George Floyd murder took place. And I was actually the only person of color at the FBI conference that demanded the arrest of those officers. Like, we know the difference between right and wrong. And I think that it is so important that we when we talk about criminal justice reform, that we understand that police reform is a part of that.
Yep.
People, they forget. I'll never get in front of a judge or a court unless I have an interaction with a police officer first. So police reform, right, is a part of criminal justice reform. And a part of those initiatives need to be community policing. We need to get back to possibly having police officers patrol the neighborhoods that they live in, or maybe the
Yep.
neighborhoods from, right? We need to have more community events that involve the community and the people. And we
Yep.
may also reconsider beat walking. I lived in Buffalo, New York for a while. And I remember when I lived there used to be officers that walked around in our neighborhood and they knew us by our first name. We knew them, they knew our parents. And it was a thing of respect. We have to definitely begin to bring the community and the police
Yep.
together. We need holding town halls. We need to be having conversations. We need to be
Yep.
answering questions. Police officers go into the communities and train these young men and young women on police interactions. What do they
Yep.
do when they're approached by a police officer? We understand that a lot of times these situations get hyped because everybody hype. I'm hyped because I feel like
Right.
you trying to kill me, and the police officer hyped because he want to make it back home. He feel like he trying to kill them. So
Nobody
already
trusts each other. It's
situation is, so that's something that we have to address because we need our police. We know that. I mean, I'm from the
yeah.
hood. I know. I mean, I don't know how real you want me to get on the show. But I know that's ever been murdered or robbed or set up, or grandmama bust in the head or whatever, it was by people, in the community, people that look like us. I'm just gonna be
Right.
honest. So,
Yeah.
we have family members also that work in law enforcement and friends. They're not all bad. We know that, the police officers and our law enforcement, they save more lives than they take. And I think that the agenda that we see going on now, like police or the police are pigs or all police are bad, is kind of like the same agenda where they're saying all black people are lazy or criminals. No, it's not all black people. We need to just, deal with the ones that are bad, right? Make sure that they, are
Yeah.
brought to for their wrongdoing and get them out of the way. I mean, you got good, bad, and everything on the police force and the black race and the white race, the Republican side, the Democrat side. It's good and bad and everything. So we gotta, for one, stop being separated by race, religion, politics, and realize that it's just really about what's right and what's wrong. And people have the ability to be good or evil, and that's what we got to begin looking for. And back to your point about voting is so very important, like you said, because look at what our people went through. And then we're talking about, the local elections. The local elections are what going to lead to the presidential election, and you need to make sure that you have a voice, because when we don't vote, they do. I've heard conversations, okay, in back rooms where people are hoping, right, that you don't vote. Because if you don't vote, your vote can't be counted. So when we don't vote, we allow other people to win.
Or
And
to
we're
speak for
tired.
us.
We're talking about tired of
Basically,
people in
we're allowing
office.
other people to speak for us when we don't use our voice.
Yep.
And that is an issue. Like when you don't use your voice, it means it's not being heard. Duh.
Yep.
Like logically. So if we have these, and this is also why I like to lead by example. We have these issues going on in our neighborhoods. We have bad leadership. Um, but then the people that are complaining about it, what are their core values? And what are they actually doing day to day in their life to be better, a better human being, and also to bring good to the world. And I think if everybody really did their part on doing good, then it could be, we can grow as a community, we can grow as a race, we can begin able to become fruitful and build legacies and build wealth. But it really does go down to the core values um, of us collectively. And a lot of us, we don't technically gather together like we should. We don't technically trust each other
Right.
like we should. And so this is definitely for you to run for office. You're saying, trust me, I got you. I'm going to do this. I've been there. I know how you feel. I have family that's probably in the same situation, or I can relate, whatever the case may be. You're saying, I got you. Take me to your space
Yep.
right now. We're about to find out who's going to be joining office. People are going to, we're going to be electing new individuals, re-electing new individuals, and then your hope is to now step into office. Take us into your space. We're at the finish line. How are you feeling?
I'm at perfect peace. Because I know that I'm doing God's will, and God's will is for me to tell the truth and fight for what's right. So I am completely at peace, and we know that God's will be done either way it goes. I am who I am. For the past 15, 16 years, I've been in public service. I've been fighting for my community, and I've been doing so without getting paid. Congressmen get paid. I haven't gotten paid for the work that I do. And I do the work that I do because that's a part of my healing process. That's what makes me a better person, helping other people become better. And I enjoy it. That's what makes, living worthwhile to me, being able to help somebody else overcome. And we need somebody on the floor in Congress that represents us. Right now, we have so many perfect politicians in office that aren't really in touch with who we are as a people. I mean, they say they are because they're going to say anything they can to get votes. But one thing about me and my story, I think that people can appreciate my transparency. You know that I'm real. I mean, it ain't no cut on it, and I'm gonna shoot straight from the hip. And this is what we need. We need somebody that's real, right? And that's gonna get in Congress, and that's gonna really fight for us, really be a voice for us, and not be afraid. My opponent right now, for some reason, is afraid to debate me. For me, not only is it disrespectful to our entire community, but why is it that two black women can't come together, regardless of what political outing we are? Why is it that two black women, well, why does she feel that two women of color running a historic race can't come to the table and sit down and have a conversation and bounce ideas off of each other and challenge those ideas about what we believe is best to move our community forward? And I can tell you for one thing, voting and putting people in office that want to fund the execution of our children in the womb is not going to get us anywhere. And I want to make sure you all heard what I said. I said wanting to fund it, right? We're talking about breaking down the system of white supremacy. Most abortionists are white, right? We cannot fund them exterminating black life when 46% of our population has already been aborted. You know, my opponent worked for Planned Parenthood for well over a decade. She was the vice president of public policy. She's been endorsed by them. She is paid to tell our community that abortion is healthcare. I just got tired of every time poor women of color come up on the Congress floor, it's related to abortion. Like, why do we have to abort our children for them to give a full, well-deserving life to the children at the border? I mean, it seemed to me like it was part of a replacement plan. And I think that when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, then we have to understand that Black life begins in the womb. And, you know, the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing over and over again. And this is our chance to do something different, to see something different. And if we want other people to value our lives, then we have to begin valuing life ourselves.
Now, for those who haven't quite decided on who they're going to vote for, well, what are some encouraging words that you can give them so they can go ahead and just get up off the couch or
Cool.
leave?
Let's do this and we'll wrap this up because I got to get ready to run out. But this is what we need to do, people, in this election. Hear me and hear me well. Do not be misguided by misinformation. Research policy. We can no longer afford to vote for personality over policy. What do you stand for? Where are you at? What type of world do you want to see your children living in? What type of atmosphere are you kind of create for the world that you live in? Right now, this election is about good and evil. I'm going to tell you straight up. You want to know what's on the ballot? Life is on the ballot, okay? You got one party, you know, saying, hey, we don't agree with aborting full-term babies. You got another party saying, not only do we agree with it, we want to pay for it. That's on the ballot. Communism or socialism is on the ballot. I tell you something, right? I invested just about everything that I had trying to start my own business. Right now, I'm speaking to you as a small business owner and a mother who has worked very hard for my success. I don't want the government coming in and taking control over what I've worked so hard for. Instead of voting for socialism, why not we push entrepreneurship and make sure that everybody is in a position to own or foster their own business? These are the things that are on the ballot. America first or illegal immigrants. This is my thing. It's no hate. But if you know the difference between an American citizen and an American criminal, then you should know the difference between a legal immigrant and an illegal immigrant. Criminal justice reform is on the ballot. You have one man in office that has signed the First Step Act, which overturned the other man that's running for this seat, 94 crime bill, which led to our mass incarceration. So when we're talking about criminal justice reform and wanting to reunite our families, you have to really think about this, right? Tangibles. Are you going to vote for the people that are responsible for our mass incarceration? Or are you going to vote for the person that signed the law to overturn it, which has set nearly 11,000 of us free? Religious freedom is on the ballot. Look, I'm a child of God. I don't care what you worship, how you do. I want to be able to pray and I want to be able to go to church. If I want to take my children to church, I want to be able to do that also. I don't want anybody telling me that I can't worship how I choose to worship. Our Second Amendment rights is on the ballot. Listen, Black people, you were slaves for so long because you did not have weapons to defend yourself. They had guns, you had sticks. Be smart. You have to be able to protect yourself. You have to be able to protect your home. You have to be able to protect your children. And school choice for everybody, all of our children. Let me tell you something. I have a child who is an Excel student. I have been in a situation before where I was in a low income community, and because my baby was so smart, it was hard for me to find a school that challenged her academically. And because I did not live in a well funded area, my daughter had to be enrolled in schools that were failings. School choice for all us. Listen, I'm not against us, I'm for us. Let's vote for life. Let's vote for change. Stanton King for Congress.
Thank you so much, Angela, for having this conversation with us. I wish you all the best. I'm
Thank
excited about your journey. I'm excited that you stepped out in this fearless role. Wishing you all the best. Y'all make sure y'all go out there and vote, 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 vote. Use your voice. Again, and Angela, I see you on the other side.
you. Bye.
Okay. Our stories, our voice, our history hasn't always been welcomed. But we learned long ago that if America won't celebrate us, then we will celebrate our own, told our way, on our time. Today we have thousands of Black creators in film. Thousands of books are on the shelves of stores around the world. But it wasn't always as easy. For Lena, for Hattie, for James, for Zora, for Langston, we fought for a place in American history, and we've empowered our own voices, keeping our stories alive. Remember Philando, remember Mike, remember Trayvon, remember Sandra, remember Oscar, remember Brianna. No more will Black voices go unheard. No more will Black stories go unread. We will write our own history and create our own legacies. And each summer in Atlanta, we will gather. We will celebrate. We speak out. Black voices matter. Black stories matter. Black lives matter. Everybody has a story to tell. Make sure that you tell yours. Create your story. Dream out loud.